In the early hours of a crisp autumn morning, the skies above Seoul International Space Center erupted with an otherworldly glow. Dr. Hae-Jin Park sat at her monitoring station, sipping her third cup of coffee, when every sensor in the facility began screaming alerts. At first, she thought it was a malfunction. The readings were unlike anything she'd ever seen. The massive object appeared suddenly, materializing through what seemed to be a tear in space itself. It hung above the city like a metallic mountain, stretching over 5 kilometers in length. The ship's surface gleamed with an iridescent sheen that shifted colors in the morning sunlight. Hae-Jin's fingers flew across her console as she collected data. Her heart raced, but years of scientific training kept her focused. The ship's energy signature was off the charts, suggesting technology far beyond human capability. She immediately notified her superiors, and within minutes, the center's emergency protocols activated. As government officials and military personnel rushed to the facility, Hae-Jin continued her analysis. The ship's hull composition was unlike any known material, and its power source defied Earth's understanding of physics. She was so absorbed in her work that she barely noticed when Center Director Kim burst into the monitoring room. "Dr. Park, we need you in the main conference room," he said, his voice shaking slightly. They want to talk to us." The aliens had sent a message, their first communication with humanity. They called themselves the Galactic Confederation, a coalition of spacefaring species that governed most of the known galaxy. They requested an immediate meeting with Earth's representatives. Within hours, diplomats from various nations gathered at the Space Center. Hae-Jin found herself included in the delegation due to her initial readings and analysis. As they waited in the main conference hall, a brilliant beam of light appeared, materializing into something that made everyone gasp. The alien representative stood 15 meters tall, their silvery skin reflecting the room's lights. Their body structure reminded Hae-Jin of a praying mantis crossed with an elephant, with multiple limbs and a head that featured compound eyes. The being moved with surprising grace despite its enormous size. But what caught Hae-Jin's attention wasn't the alien's impressive height or strange appearance. Her trained eye noticed how the creature seemed to struggle with Earth's gravity. Its movements, while graceful, showed signs of strain. Its breathing apparatus worked overtime, suggesting difficulty with our atmosphere's composition. The alien spoke through a translation device, its voice booming through the hall. "We are the Confederation, governors of 10,000 worlds. We have watched your species develop and deemed this the appropriate time for contact." Earth's representatives presented their case for joining the Confederation, highlighting humanity's achievements and potential contributions. Hae-Jin observed how the alien's body language shifted during the presentation, noting every subtle reaction. The dismissal, when it came, was both unexpected and harsh. The alien representative looked down at the assembled humans with what Hae-Jin could only interpret as amusement. "Your species is barely taller than our young during early gestation," it declared. "What could you possibly contribute?" The words stung, but Hae-Jin's scientific mind was already cataloging important details. The aliens' derision revealed a cultural blind spot. They equated physical size with capability. More importantly, she noticed how the representative had to rest frequently during the meeting, how its movements became more labored over time. While the diplomats argued and pleaded, Hae-Jin quietly documented her observations. The alien's cellular structure, visible through her enhanced scanning equipment, showed signs of stress under Earth's gravity. Their massive size, which they seemed so proud of, came with significant biological constraints. As the meeting ended in failure, with Earth's application for membership rejected, Hae-Jin remained behind in the conference room. She reviewed her notes, a plan already forming in her mind. The alien size wasn't just a difference, it was a vulnerability. Their pride in their physical stature had led them to overlook the advantages of being smaller. That evening, as the massive ship departed Earth's atmosphere, Hae-Jin submitted a detailed report to the Scientific Council. She outlined her observations about the aliens' physiological limitations and suggested areas for further research. What the Confederation saw as humanity's greatest weakness might actually be their greatest strength. Little did she know that her insights would soon become crucial to humanity's survival. As the alien ship disappeared into the depths of space, Earth's sensors detected an encrypted transmission. Though they couldn't decode it fully, the message's aggressive tone suggested that humanity's first contact with the Confederation was just the beginning of a much larger story. Hajin looked up at the stars that evening, knowing that somewhere out there, giants roamed the galaxy. But she had seen their weaknesses and size. She was certain wouldn't be the final measure of success in what was to come. Song Ho Kim stood at his office window, watching Seoul's skyline as dawn broke over the city. The intelligence report in his hands felt heavy, its contents weighing on him more than the actual paper. 3 months had passed since first contact, and now Earth faced its first interstellar crisis. The report detailed intercepted communications from a group calling themselves the Dominant Coalition. Unlike the diplomatic representatives who had visited Earth, these aliens saw no need for politeness. They viewed Earth as nothing more than a resource cache to be harvested, its inhabitants too small to pose any meaningful resistance. Song Ho's office comm system chimed. "Sir, the United Earth Defense Council is assembled and waiting," his assistant announced. He gathered his materials and headed to the underground conference chamber, his mind already racing with tactical possibilities. The council chamber was packed with military leaders and scientists from around the world. Dr. Hae-Jin Park sat among them, her research team's preliminary findings displayed on her tablet. Song Ho noticed the dark circles under her eyes. She'd been working nonstop since first contact. "Ladies and gentlemen," Song Ho began, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "The Dominant Coalition fleet will reach Earth in approximately 6 months. Their transmissions indicate they consider this a simple resource-gathering mission, not a real military campaign. Their arrogance gives us an advantage." He activated the main display, showing analyzed footage of Confederation ships in action. "Look at their movement patterns. These vessels are enormous, yes, but that size comes at a cost. Their turning radius is massive. Their acceleration is limited by the structural stress their size creates." The room filled with murmurs as military strategists began to see what Song Ho had identified. He continued, playing footage of alien ground forces from surveillance data shared by other species. "Their troops follow the same pattern. They're powerful, but slow. Their movements are predictable." Hajin stood up, adding her own findings to the discussion. "My team has discovered something crucial about their cellular structure," she explained. "The very biology that allows them to grow so large makes them vulnerable to rapid environmental changes. Their cells struggle to adapt quickly due to their size." Song Ho nodded, building on her point. "Their technological superiority is real, but it's built around their scale. Their sensors are designed to track large objects. Their weapons are calibrated for massive targets. They're not prepared to fight an enemy our size." The council room erupted in discussion. Some argue for immediate surrender, hoping to avoid confrontation. Others pushed for desperate measures like nuclear deterrence. Song Ho waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. "We don't need to match their size or power," he said firmly. "We need to fight smart. Human-sized fighters could slip through gaps in their defense screens. Our weapons can be redesigned to target their biological weaknesses. We can turn our small size into an advantage they never expected." He shared his initial strategic plans: small, agile ships that could outmaneuver the massive alien vessels. Ground forces trained to exploit the aliens' slow movement and limited maneuverability. Weapons designed to disrupt their biological functions rather than trying to match their destructive power. Hajin's team presented their research next, showing how the alien cellular structure became increasingly unstable under rapid pressure changes. "They evolved on a world with very stable conditions," she explained. "Their size makes them strong, but inflexible. We can use that." As the meeting progressed, hope began to replace fear in the room. The aliens' dismissal of humanity had left them blind to human potential. They expected no real resistance, which meant Earth's preparations would come as a complete surprise. Song Ho concluded the meeting with a clear directive. We have 6 months to prepare. Every nation, every resource, every mind must be focused on this task. The aliens think size determines the outcome of this conflict. Let's prove them wrong. After the council dispersed, Song Ho and He Jin remained behind, reviewing plans and sharing insights. Their overconfidence is their weakness, Song Ho noted, studying the alien ship designs. They've never had to fight an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm with size and power. And they've never faced humans before, He Jin added, a determined smile on her face. We've spent our entire history adapting, overcoming bigger and stronger opponents. It's what we do best. As night fell over Seoul, lights burned in military bases and research facilities around the world. The storm was coming, but humanity wouldn't face it unprepared. In labs and training grounds, people worked tirelessly, turning their perceived weakness into strength. The dominant coalition was about to learn a lesson that Earth's history had taught many times before. The biggest opponent isn't always the winner. Sometimes, the smallest fighter has the greatest advantage of all, being underestimated. Deep beneath the streets of Busan, engineer Yee-Jin Lee watched as sparks flew from her latest prototype. The underground facility hummed with activity as scientists and engineers worked around the clock on Project Hummingbird. 4 months remained until the alien fleet's arrival, and every second counted. Yee-Jin wiped sweat from her forehead as she adjusted the neural interface connections on the combat suit. The sleek, black armor stood barely 2 meters tall, tiny compared to their alien opponents, but that was exactly the point. Every component had been designed to enhance what humans did best: move fast, think faster, and adapt to changing situations. Run Diagnostic Sequence 5, she called out to her team. Holographic displays lit up around the suit, showing power flow and system status. This was the 15th prototype, and each version had brought them closer to their goal. The suit had to be perfect. Humanity's survival might depend on it. In the testing chamber next door, pilot Jae-won Kang prepared for another flight test. He had been chosen from thousands of candidates for his exceptional reflexes and spatial awareness. The neural interface required split-second reactions and perfect coordination between mind and machine. Systems online. Yee-Jin's voice came through his helmet speakers. Remember, this version has upgraded thrusters. They'll respond faster than you're used to. Jae-won flexed his hands, feeling the suit move like a second skin. The neural interface translated his smallest movements into precise actions, while power assists amplified his strength and speed. But the suit's true advantage lay in its size, small enough to exploit weaknesses in alien defenses, yet powerful enough to cause serious damage. The test chamber activated, holographic projections creating a simulated battlefield. Massive alien ships appeared overhead, their defense systems calibrated for targets many times larger than a human. Ji-won took a deep breath and engaged the thrusters. The suit responded instantly, launching him into the air with incredible speed. He weaved between simulated energy beams, the suit's enhanced reflexes allowing him to change direction in microseconds. The alien weapons, designed to track large vessels, couldn't keep up with such a small, agile target. Attack Pattern Alpha, Yee-Jin commanded. Jae-won dove toward the holographic ship's hull, targeting spots that He-Jin's research had identified as structural weaknesses. The suit's weapons might be small, but concentrated at the right points, they could cripple even the largest vessel. In the observation room, military officials watched with growing excitement. General Park leaned forward, his eyes fixed on Jae-won's performance. "How many suits can we produce in 4 months?" he asked. "With current resources, 200. Yee-Jin replied, not taking her eyes off the diagnostic displays. Each one handcrafted to its pilot. Mass production would compromise the neural interface precision. Jai-1 completed the test run with perfect scores, landing smoothly as the holograms faded. His suit had taken simulated hits that would have destroyed traditional aircraft, but its small size and reinforced shielding had protected him. More importantly, he had demonstrated how a human pilot could exploit gaps in alien defenses that their own size made them blind to. Later that evening, Yi Jin reviewed the test data with her team. The neural interface showed perfect synchronization, the weapon systems had performed beyond expectations, and power consumption was finally at acceptable levels. But something still bothered her. She returned to her workbench, examining the suit's armor plating. The material was revolutionary, lightweight yet stronger than anything humanity had previously developed. But could it be better? She began running new simulations, pushing the boundaries of material science. As midnight approached, a breakthrough caught her attention. By adjusting the molecular structure of the armor, they could make it even more responsive to the neural interface. The suit wouldn't just protect its pilot. It would react to threats before the pilot consciously registered them. Jai-1 found her still working when he arrived for early morning training. "You haven't slept," he observed, noting the coffee cups scattered around her workspace. "Sleep can wait," Yi Jin replied, showing him the new designs. "Look at these projections. With these improvements, the suit won't just enhance your abilities. It will anticipate your needs. Every microsecond counts when we're fighting opponents that size." They spent the morning implementing the changes, testing each adjustment meticulously. The suit grew more responsive with each iteration, until it seemed to move in perfect harmony with its pilot. This wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was humanity's answer to the aliens' overwhelming size advantage. As news of Project Hummingbird's success spread, other research teams accelerated their own projects. Weapons designed to target alien biological weaknesses, communication systems that could slit through their detection grids, stealth technology that took advantage of their size-based blind spots. In her rare quiet moments, Yi Jin thought about the enormity of what they were attempting. Humanity was preparing to fight enemies that could crush cities with a single step. But as she watched Jai-1 master the Hummingbird suit, performing maneuvers that would be impossible for their giant adversaries, she felt something she hadn't expected: confidence. The aliens had dismissed humans as insignificant due to their size. Soon, they would learn that sometimes the smallest opponent could be the most dangerous. As Project Hummingbird proved, humanity's greatest weakness might just turn out to be their greatest strength. The alarm sirens wailed across Earth's defense installations as the dominant coalition's fleet emerged from hyperspace. Squadron leader Taehyun Park stood in the ready room, watching the massive ships appear on the tactical display. Each alien vessel dwarfed Earth's largest cities, their weapons capable of reducing continents to ash. "Hummingbird Squadron, report to launch stations," the base AI announced. Around him, 200 pilots rushed to their suits. They had trained for 6 months for this moment, perfecting maneuvers that would have been impossible in conventional aircraft. Taehyun's hands moved automatically through the pre-flight checks of his Hummingbird suit. The neural interface hummed to life, connecting his mind directly to the advanced combat system. Through the base's transparent dome, he could see the alien ships filling the sky, their hulls blocking out the stars. "Remember your training," he transmitted to his pilots as they took their positions. "They expect us to be helpless. They expect us to surrender. Let's show them how wrong they are." The alien fleet's first transmission was predictably arrogant. "Surrender your resources and accept relocation, and we will ensure your species' survival," the coalition commander announced. "Resist, and we will not waste time with mercy." Taehyun's response was simple: "Hummingbird Squadron, launch." 200 suits shot into the sky, their advanced propulsion systems accelerating them to combat speed in seconds. The alien ships immediately opened fire, but their targeting systems had been designed for vessels hundreds of times larger than a human. Their massive energy beams sliced through empty air as the Hummingbird suits effortlessly evaded them. "Attack pattern Delta," Taehyun commanded. His squadron split into smaller groups, each targeting specific weaknesses in the alien vessels. The hummingbird suit's small size allowed them to slip through gaps in the ship's energy shields, gaps that would have been meaningless to larger vessels, but were perfect for human-sized attackers. The first strike caught the aliens completely off guard. Precision weapons designed by Dr. He-jin's team struck vulnerable points in the massive ship's hull structure. The aliens had never considered that an enemy could attack such small targets with such accuracy. Several of their support vessels began losing power before they even realized what was happening. "They're launching fighters," his second-in-command reported. The alien combat vessels were enormous compared to the hummingbird suits, but they shared their mothership's weaknesses. They were designed to fight large targets. Ta-hyun led his squadron in a series of maneuvers that would have torn apart conventional aircraft. The neural interfaces allowed them to pull turns and changes of direction that defied the aliens' understanding of combat tactics. Their massive fighters couldn't match the humans' agility, and their weapons couldn't track such small, fast-moving targets. "Target their sensor arrays," Ta-hyun ordered, identifying a pattern in the alien ship's responses. Without their long-range detection, they'll be flying blind. The hummingbird suits struck with surgical precision. Their weapons may have been small, but concentrated on the right points, they were devastatingly effective. One by one, the alien ship's sensor systems went dark, leaving them unable to coordinate their defense against enemies they could barely detect. An alien commander's frustrated transmission echoed through their communication channels. "How are they doing this? They're too small to cause this much damage." Ta-hyun allowed himself a small smile as he led another attack run. "Size isn't everything," he transmitted to his pilots. "Today we prove that courage and skill matter more." The battle lasted hours, but the outcome was clear long before it ended. The alien fleet, despite its overwhelming firepower, couldn't effectively fight an enemy they had dismissed as insignificant. Their massive weapons were useless against targets too small and agile to hit. Their defensive systems couldn't stop attackers that slipped through gaps they hadn't even known existed. As the sun rose over Asia, the remnants of the dominant coalition's fleet retreated in disarray. The first wave of their invasion had ended in complete disaster. Earth's orbital defense stations reported that several alien ships had been abandoned by their crews, their systems crippled by precisely targeted attacks. Ta-hyun led his squadron back to base, their suits showing signs of the intense combat, but with minimal casualties. As they landed, cheers erupted from the ground crews. News of their victory was already spreading across the globe, giving hope to billions who had feared this day would be Earth's last. In the debriefing room, Ta-hyun reviewed the battle footage with his pilots. The alien ship's massive size, which they had considered their greatest strength, had proved to be a critical weakness. Their rigid tactical doctrine, based on overwhelming force, had left them unable to adapt to an enemy that fought differently. "They'll be back," he told his squadron. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." But now they know. Size isn't what determines the outcome of a battle. It's the skill, courage, and adaptability of those who fight it. As night fell over Earth, repair crews worked to prepare the hummingbird suits for the battles to come. The aliens had learned a costly lesson about dismissing humanity based on their size. But more importantly, humanity had proved that sometimes the smallest fighter could be the most dangerous of all. The International Space Station's research module spun silently above Earth as Dr. He-jin Park examined her latest test results. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle, and the aliens had adapted their tactics. Their second wave now focused on ground invasion, believing that direct combat would favor their massive size. He-jin's eyes widened as she reviewed the data from captured alien biological samples. She had noticed something odd about their respiratory systems during first contact, but now she understood why. Their enormous bodies required a precise mixture of gases to function efficiently, a mixture they had to manually maintain even in their own ships. "Director Kim," she called through the station's communication system. "I need to show you something immediately." On the surface below, Commander Min-Soo Choi led his Special Forces team through the maintenance tunnels beneath a captured alien forward base. The invaders had established these bases across several continents, but their massive size forced them to build everything to their scale. This created countless spaces and passages too small for them to use, or even notice. "Team 2 in position," whispered a voice in his earpiece. Min-Soo checked his tactical display, confirming all teams were ready. The aliens above had no idea that dozens of human soldiers had infiltrated their facility through passages they considered little more than air ducts. Back on the space station, He-Jin explained her discovery to the assembled scientific council via a holographic conference. "Their cellular respiration is incredibly complex," she said, displaying molecular diagrams. "It's what allows them to maintain their massive size, but it's also surprisingly fragile." She showed how the aliens' bodies required specific atmospheric conditions to function properly. Even small changes in gas composition could severely impact their performance. More importantly, she had identified a way to disrupt their respiratory process using targeted chemical agents that would have no effect on human biology. "We don't need to defeat them with brute force," she explained. "We just need to make it impossible for them to function in our environment." Meanwhile, Min-Soo's teams executed their coordinated strike. They emerged from hidden access points throughout the alien base, targeting environmental control systems and atmospheric processors. The aliens had designed their security to stop frontal assaults from enemies their own size. They were completely unprepared for humans attacking from what they considered maintenance spaces. "All teams, deploy He-Jin's compounds," Min-Soo ordered. His soldiers activated devices that released a carefully engineered gas mixture into the base's air supply. The chemical agents were invisible and odorless, but their effect on the alien physiology was dramatic. Within minutes, the massive invaders began showing signs of distress. Their movements became sluggish, their coordination impaired. Some collapsed entirely, their respiratory systems unable to cope with the altered atmosphere. The base fell into chaos as the aliens struggled to understand what was happening. He-Jin watched the operation's results through satellite feeds. Her theory had proven correct. The alien size advantage had become their greatest vulnerability. Their bodies required such precise environmental conditions that even minor disruptions could incapacitate them. "All teams, Phase 2, Min-Soo commanded." His forces moved through the confused alien base, securing critical systems and gathering intelligence. The aliens, struggling just to breathe properly, couldn't mount an effective defense against the small, agile human soldiers. Reports began flowing in from around the globe as other resistance teams implemented He-Jin's discovery. Alien bases fell one after another, their occupants unable to function in the artificially altered atmospheres. The invaders found themselves facing an enemy that struck at their most basic biological needs. In their orbital command ships, the alien leaders faced a devastating realization. Their size, which had always been their greatest advantage, had become a critical weakness on Earth. They couldn't maintain the atmospheric conditions they needed while fighting a species that could strike from anywhere, at any time. He-Jin continued refining her research, developing more effective compounds and deployment methods. Each new discovery made it harder for the aliens to maintain their presence on Earth. Their massive bodies, requiring enormous amounts of energy and specific environmental conditions, simply couldn't adapt quickly enough. Min-Soo's guerrilla tactics proved equally devastating. His team struck without warning, emerging from spaces the aliens couldn't access, disappearing before they could respond. The invaders found themselves fighting an enemy they could barely see, much less catch or kill. As the aliens' ground offensive faltered, He-Jin received an urgent message from the Defense Council. The invaders had requested emergency negotiations. Their forces were withdrawing from Earth's surface, unable to maintain effective combat operations under these conditions. They never considered that their size could be used against them. He-Jin told her research team as they watched alien ships departing Earth's atmosphere. They were so convinced that bigger meant better that they ignored their own vulnerabilities. Min-Su stood in the captured alien base, now being studied by human scientists. The massive corridors and rooms, built for beings 5 times human size, served as a reminder of how the invaders had underestimated humanity. Their assumption that size determined military superiority had proven to be their undoing. Earth's defenders had learned a crucial lesson. Every strength could become a weakness if properly exploited. The aliens' gigantic size had made them powerful, but it had also made them inflexible, vulnerable to attacks they never saw coming from enemies they had dismissed as insignificant. As night fell over the liberated territories, the Jin and Min-Su's teams continued their work. The war wasn't over, but they had discovered the key to victory. Sometimes the smallest opponent could be the most dangerous, especially when they understood their enemy's weaknesses better than the enemy did themselves. Ambassador Sun Mai-Quan stood at the viewport of the orbital diplomatic station, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The message from the Galactic Confederation had arrived hours ago, marking a dramatic shift in their stance toward humanity. The same beings who had once dismissed humans as insignificant now requested formal peace negotiations. The diplomatic station had been specially constructed to accommodate both species, one half built to human scale, the other to the towering proportions of the Confederation representatives. The contrast served as a perfect symbol of what these negotiations meant to achieve. "Ambassador, they're ready for you," her aide announced. Sun Mei smoothed her formal diplomatic uniform and walked toward the meeting chamber. Her steps were measured and confident. Humanity no longer needed to feel small in the presence of giants. The Confederation diplomats waited in the chamber, their massive forms carefully arranged around a specially designed table that accommodated both species sizes. Sun Mai noticed their posture was different from their first contact. Gone was the dismissive arrogance, replaced by something that looked remarkably like respect. "Greetings, Ambassador Quan," the lead diplomat said through their translation device. "The Confederation acknowledges humanity's remarkable defense of their world. We wish to discuss terms for peaceful relations." Sun Li took her seat at the table, noting how the aliens now adjusted their positions to better communicate with her, rather than simply looking down as they had before. "The people of Earth welcome this opportunity for dialogue," she replied. "We have much to discuss." The negotiations began with the immediate concerns, the complete withdrawal of dominant coalition forces and recognition of Earth's sovereignty. But Sun Mei had larger goals in mind. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, gathering evidence of how humanity's unique perspective could benefit the Confederation. "Let me show you something," she said, activating a holographic display. It showed footage of human engineers maintaining Confederation technology, accessing areas the aliens themselves couldn't reach. "Our size allows us to perform tasks that would be impossible for your species. This is just one example of how we can complement each other's capabilities." The aliens watched with evident interest as she presented more examples. Human design modifications had already improved the efficiency of several Confederation systems. Their smaller scale allowed them to work with precision at levels the giants found difficult to achieve. "Your species once questioned what we could contribute," Sun Mei continued. "Now we have shown you. But this was just the beginning. Imagine what we could accomplish together, combining your resources with our unique capabilities." The diplomatic discussions continued for hours. Sun Mai presented proposal after proposal, each demonstrating how humanity's different scale offered advantages the Confederation had never considered. Medical procedures that required smaller hands, maintenance systems that could operate in spaces too confined for the aliens, defensive technologies that worked on multiple scales. "The dominant coalition's attack taught us all an important lesson," she explained. "Size alone doesn't determine value. Different scales have different advantages. Together, we could be stronger than either of us alone." As the negotiations progressed, Sun Mai could see the shift in the aliens' perspective. They began asking questions about human technology, about Earth's approaches to problems they had always tackled differently. Their initial condescension had been replaced by genuine curiosity. "Your species has shown remarkable adaptability," the lead diplomat acknowledged. "We had not considered how a different scale could provide such advantages. The Confederation could benefit from your perspective." Sun Mai seized this opening to present her masterstroke, a proposal for full Confederation membership for Earth, but with special provisions recognizing humanity's unique contributions. "We don't ask to be treated as lesser beings because of our size," she stated firmly. "We ask to be recognized for what we are, a species with different but equally valuable capabilities." The aliens conferred among themselves, their massive forms huddled in discussion. Sun Mai waited patiently, knowing that centuries of size-based prejudice wouldn't disappear overnight, but the first steps had been taken. When they turned back to her, their response was positive. The Confederation would not only accept Earth's membership, but would establish special cooperative programs to explore how their different scales could complement each other. "You have shown us that our assumptions about size were flawed," the lead diplomat admitted. "The Confederation has always prided itself on incorporating diverse perspectives. It is time we truly lived up to that ideal." As the formal agreements were drawn up, Sun Mai reflected on how far they had come. From being dismissed as insignificant to being recognized as valuable partners, humanity had proven that physical size was no measure of worth or capability. The news of the successful negotiations spread quickly across Earth. Humanity had not only defended their world, but had turned potential destroyers into allies. They had done it not by trying to match the alien size, but by proving that being smaller could be an advantage. "We didn't just prove them wrong," Sun Mai observed. "We showed them a better way forward. Size doesn't determine worth. It's what you do with what you have that matters." The new Earth Confederation Joint Center stood as a testament to this truth. Its architecture seamlessly blended both scales, creating spaces where all species could work together effectively. What had once been seen as an accommodation had become a model for future development. As the sun set on the historic day, He Jin returned to her laboratory. On her desk sat a new research proposal, a joint human confederation project that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The future held countless possibilities, all because they had proved that size truly doesn't matter. The species that had been dismissed as too small had not only survived but had thrived, transforming the very society that had once looked down on them. In the end, humanity's greatest perceived weakness had become their greatest strength, proving that sometimes the biggest changes come from the smallest places. The end.